Hello! By now you have probably noticed Cyclopean walls are usually the best and the oldest stonework around, building the impression that something is missing in the past, and leaving us wondering, how could so many cities be built on top of its best monument, and why did civilization kind of went downhill from then? Although that post-Cyclopean decadence is common as seen in cities like Athens or Alatri, it is not a fixed rule. There are other cases, like today's subject wall in the island of Malta. This little Cyclopean wall, said to be older than all the polygonal walls in mainland Italy, is, being honest, quite lame in terms of the building skill. However, it is nevertheless unique, because for once civilization did not peak at the moment the wall was built. In fact, the Maltese wall is not the best nor the oldest prehistoric building in the island, an observation that, as we'll see, will lead us this close to a lost civilization. The history of Malta is too intense for such a small island. Well, it's an archipelago, but the islets around hardly make any difference. Malta is now a developed and independent country within the European Union, if that's possible. But before this, starting in the 8th century BC, the island had been ruled in short sequence by the, Phoenicians, Romans, Vandals, probably, the Byzantine, Arabs in 2 terms, Normans, Spanish plus a few feudal lords, Crusaders, the French just for 2 years, and finally the English. Poor guys, I mean the Maltese. Despite all those foreigners having a go, it was never easy to control the islands, as attested by the Italians and the Ottomans, who did try very hard and failed to rule the Malta. Even in between the comings and goings of new landlords during what could have been seen as the peaceful times, there was never a lack of trouble. Revolts, religious conversions, reaching close to proper genocide. All this happening because Malta is bang in the middle of the Mediterranean Sea, but also because it's just a small bit of dry land that at times could hardly sustain itself, and in other cases was too ravaged to fight back. All in all, Malta does not look like the place to find an old examples of monumental construction. That awkward Cyclopean wall, hardly 50 meters long, was built in the final stage of Malta's prehistory, in a place called Borg in Nadur, naming a whole 7th centuries period where apparently nothing else happened. The wall is shaped like the letter D, mixing along 3 or 4 different types of construction techniques and timings, with only the exterior curve being reputed as original. That original bit is precisely the strangest, with different stones randomly assembled, looking to me as if it was rebuilt, paying homage to the bigger stones. Otherwise, I don't see the purpose of carving and fitting some mid-sized stones around some large and bumpy boulders. Archaeology of the site has not been very revealing. The wall is dated to the later Bronze Age and likely had seen contact with the Mycenaean, as extrapolated from bits of pottery found in the site, thus making this wall officially older than any of the polygonal walls to be found in mainland Italy. Beyond that, there is nothing more to grab, including that we don't know how the people living there handled their dead, which is a complication as we'll see moving forward in the video, and backward in the past, deeper into Malta's prehistory. If you still don't follow this channel, here's a good reason to start. There's dragons above the Cyclopean walls, for real. Okay, dragons is just a name suggested by a viewer when referring to the hot group of cultures that in Europe prehistory had the flaming habit of cremating their dead, in opposition to the far more common burial grounds. Some of the most notorious dragon peoples were the Etruscans in Italy and the urn-filled culture living before the barbecue all over Central Europe. This dragon group could also include the Trojans and the Targaryen, but we aren't sure if those are real. To begin revealing a pattern, Malta also had a dragon face before everybody else around, starting around 2300 BC, after a complete shift in the population introduced by this new cremated culture, ones that were also quite good with metal work but terrible with stonework. Those dragon people arrived in Malta hundreds of years before their bodies were roasted in mainland Europe, just raising the question of who were they and where were they coming from. On top of not knowing where the dragons originated, until now it's impossible to even know if those dragons are the same people as the wall builders later on. Because likewise the wall people did not leave any dead body for us to see if it was burnt, the dragons did not leave any building that we could compare with the wall. Just before the dragons, Malta had a golden era, a phase so incredible it's worth looking at it in two separate video chapters. One mentioning the Hypogeum in Saflieni. Hypogeum just means cave, but this is not your random man cave. This Saflieni thing is a massive, mysterious and oddly shaped multi-layer underground that was used for God knows what, from at least 3300 and probably even before that. Dating is easy, thanks to the 7000 plus dead people found inside. Even if all those bodies were not enough to guarantee the cave was built as a tomb versus being later reused as one, at least it's clear enough that the bodies inside are not roasted. So we know the Hypogean people were not the same as the later dragons. It is also worth noting that at about that same time, in the 4th millennium BC, nearby Sicily was basically savage. Sicily is a much bigger and fertile landmass, and the likely source for all the people traveling into Malta. However, the oldest constructions ever found in Sicily would still have to take about 1000 years to pop up. Now we are getting to the really amazing stuff. The Malta temples. World famous, polygonal, megalithic, Netflix featuring. Those were for a time the oldest freestanding structures in the entire world. Although they have since lost the world title to Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, it's still very relevant that nowhere in Europe and not even in Egypt was any building ever found to be nearly as old as the Maltese temples. So, if that tiny wall I've been nagging about, old as it is, challenges that Cyclopean habit of being the oldest and the best construction around. That is just because in Malta there is an even older plot hole in prehistory. And it's a really mind-boggling one. Let's see. 1. The temples are in a unique way megalithic, polygonal or Cyclopean, in the sense that the big boulders were cut and fit one to another without mortar gluing the stones. 2. The stones were cut without metal tools and even without harder rock around to polish the relatively softer ones. 3. They are huge, massive, the size of medieval cathedrals, with dozens of them still around. 4. They are built in a tiny, dry island that could hardly support 5,000 inhabitants and often went deserted. And 5. They are so old there is no precedent for them anywhere in the mainland. All that just does not make sense. It's impossible. Before the temples, the island had been deserted for nearly 1,000 years, during the whole 5th millennium BC, due to soil erosion, likely caused by some Neolithic settlers that may or not have left some ruins. Those maybe older stuff are just dolmens. Nothing much. Everyone had dolmens, from Korea to Portugal, so no one should care about dolmens. But the dolmens in Malta could come in handy for a bit of perspective. They are said to be from the Bronze Age, 1,000 years after the temples, because that's the earliest evidence for any stonework in nearby Sicily. However, since no datable materials, i.e. dead bodies, were found inside the dolmens, I'd say they predate the temples. Dolmens have existed in Europe since way back, 7,000 BC or more, and they used to be covered in land, and also covering dead people inside. Thus, it's reasonable that these Eurodolmen builders could have traveled into Malta, built dolmens in their new land, and since the island had a lack of soil, the Earth Mound project was abandoned, and in the end, the dolmen guys just did not fit with the landscape. Now, with the whole timeline we can see it, even if it's not there. Let me explain. Everything in Malta is just too damn old. The dragons are older than the other Burning Man graves. The dolmens are likely older than in Sicily. And even the wall is said to be older than the other ones in Italy. That mini Cyclopean wall is odd and weird, for two reasons. One is for having several types of stones mixed, like it was a reconstruction, paying homage to some special stones emerging from the past. And second, because that wall, unlike many other Cyclopean walls, is not the best nor the oldest construction around. The best and the oldest construction in the islands of Malta are the temples, and they go way beyond Malta alone. They are apparently the first ever Cyclopean work to have been built anywhere, and that just cannot be. Malta is too dry and small to be the cradle of civilization, the Atlantis, navel of the world, etc. Since way back with the dragons and up until recently, the people of Malta have been replaced, pushed around, invaded, savaged by all sorts of greedy neighbors. All that whilst dealing with severe erosion and lack of water. Such a small dry island cannot invent Cyclopean masonry. The builders had to be coming from somewhere else. They are the infamous lost civilization. There you have it. In Malta we find officially the oldest Cyclopean masonry in the world. Just to conclude, there must be more. There is something, somewhere, even older, that is either destroyed or misdated. So keep around whilst we continue looking for it. Hope you liked it. See you soon.